Welcome to Ayurveda and Spirituality with your host, Alakananda Ma, a renowned Ayurvedic expert and a graduate of a top London medical school. She is the principal of Alundi Ayurveda Gurukula, a unique apprenticeship-style school in Boulder, Colorado. She is a spiritual mother, teacher, flower essence maker, and storyteller. Join us as we uncover the timeless principles of Ayurveda, discover practical tips for enhancing vitality, and explore the deeper dimensions of spirituality that intertwine with the ancient science of life. Today on the podcast, we are sharing a recording from the archives.
Seeing each one of you, inseparable from baby Krishna, I come to you as your loving mother and most humble devotee. Welcome, my baby gods. It's my privilege to be here tonight in Sufi Books in the great city of New York. I appreciate each and every one of you from coming here. I know the subject matter tonight is of immense interest, and I appreciate your longing in your heart to hear something of subjects that for so long have been fully divorced, sexuality and spirituality. Although some of you may feel that you are meeting me for the very first time, or that we have met for the very first time during this visit, I do recognize each and every one of you from my dreams and visions since 1983. I've been meeting you all in visions since that time. I'm very happy now that we can meet face to face, heart to heart. These connections have been destined since a long time, and if you believe in such things, it's only because we participated together in spiritual activities in previous births and formed these karmic links that we're all gathered together on this beautiful spring evening in Manhattan. The Brahmins of a great temple gathered together to perform the worship of Lord Shiva. It was an auspicious occasion. The Brahmins were beautifully garbed in their yellow silk ritual lungis with the sparkling rosaries of rudraksha and crystal. Bathed, shaved, and duly adorned, they gathered around the Homa pit to perform the great fire ceremony. And their cries of Om Namah Shivaya and their utterances of the Rudram prayer reached the ears of Lord Shiva as he was meditating on Mount Kailash, and he thought, oh, these devotees are worshipping me very nicely. I should go pay them a quick visit. To the utter consternation of the noble Brahmins of the temple, a naked, ragged hobo who had not seen a comb in years wanders into their temple where they're performing their fire ceremony. He hasn't had a bath, he's smeared with ash, and his ding-dong is hanging out. Embarrassed and in great consternation, they grab him. They can't think what to do to deal with the problem, and they quickly decide among themselves there's only one solution. They have to cut it off. With a quick stroke of the knife, they cut off Lord Shiva's member, and the first Brahmin has it in his hands, but his hands are getting completely scorched, seared and burned. He almost drops it as the next one grabs the lingam of Shiva, and the next one, when it flies out of their hands, takes off, it becomes airborne, it's scorching, burning, and the lingam of Shiva begins to orbit the earth, burning everything in its path. The forests are burning, the earth, the seas are boiling, the earth is growing hotter and hotter. In desperation, Mother Earth cries out, Sister Parvati, you're the one who has the ear of Shiva. Please help me, I'm burning up. Immediately, Mother Parvati assumes her primordial form of the yoni, the female organ of generation, the gate of life, assuming the form of a beautiful marble yoni. And from his orbit, the lingam of Shiva sees the beautiful yoni and makes an immediate descent and the lingam and the yoni are joined together, and immediately all the burning stops. The earth becomes peaceful and green and pleasant once again, and Shiva is fully pacified. This is a true story from the Shiva Puranas. We may giggle, and our giggling almost manifests the fact that for us, we're not quite sure if lingams and yonis really are sacred after all. Aren't they kind of funny? I mean, isn't this almost like a elementary school locker room joke? This is a very sacred story about symbols of ultimate union and sacredness. Because in the union of the lingam and the yoni, we see the union of the sun and the moon, the union of Mother Earth and Father Sky, the union of immanent and transcendent, the union of being and becoming, the union of time intersected with eternity, the union of the Kundalini, the inherent spiritual evolutionary urge of human beings, of all beings, through human beings, uniting with the Soma, the longing descent of divine into the physical world of manifestation. All of this amazing spirituality is conveyed in this funny, yet very sacred story from the Shiva Puranas. About 4,000 years ago, we made a break with the mother. Sorry for those of you that came on Sunday night to the first talk. Well, actually, you're the lucky ones. You got to hear the whole introduction. If you missed the whole first talk, get the CD, which we will attempt to make if I can ever find someone that will help me edit my talks into CDs. Because that'll give the full explanation about time and how we got to be where we are right now. But just to summarize, about 4,000 years ago, we made a break with the mother. This break was not made in the Eastern world. In India and in the East, the mother was kept and new paradigms were grafted on to the previous ones, almost like a child building a block, a tower of blocks. From the Middle East to the Western world, when we changed paradigms 4,000 years ago from the age of Taurus, the age of the Great Mother, to the age of Aries, we made a radical break with the mother and with the feminine. And it is as if we might look at one of the beautiful terracotta figurines of the mother that were the worship objects throughout the age of Taurus and say that at this moment we smashed that figurine, we shattered her to pieces. And in these talks that are being offered, in each talk we have to pick up one of these pieces of the shattered image of the mother and examine this piece carefully so that in the end we'll put the whole image back together, not to make the same old, but something completely new that is reforged out of the old and yet in our present experience. So when we broke with the mother, all the things of the mother became taboo. They became repressed. They became disordered. And this included money, which belongs to the mother, women, the earth, relationships and intimacy, love, and sexuality. In the age of Taurus, sexuality is sacred. The images such as the lingam and the yoni, the sacred pole, the sacred grove, images that evoke our sexual nature, that evoke the gate of life, are common ways of worshipping. At this time, sexuality and spirituality are not seen as separate. Around the world during the age of Taurus, there were the dedicated women who dwelt in the temples with whom the divine union could be shared. They're sometimes called sacred prostitutes, but that's a very improper word, as they were not prostitutes because they did not engage for money in these actions, but it was their sacred service. Through uniting with the dedicated women of the temple, a man could ensure the prosperity of his fields, the fertility of his flocks and herds, the fertility of his own wife, the well-being of his family, and furthermore, the prosperity and benefit of his entire city. So, in those ancient times, the sacred service of sexual union was seen as an engagement that is holy and for the benefit of the whole. When we made the break, we went radically against this idea. They retained these customs until quite recently in India, when the British outlawed the Devi Dasis, the guardians of the sacred dance, the sacred music, and sacred sexuality. Until only very recently were these women outlawed in India. But in the Western world, we made that break, and now anything to do with any kind of fertility cult became bad. As the age of Aries comes in, it is the age of Mars, the age of the sword. It is the age of war and the coming of the paradigm of dominion. The age of the Great Mother, it's replaced by the age of the Father. It's also the time of the chariot and horse. It's the beginning of warfare as we know it today. And it's at this time, in the age of Aries, that the domination paradigm comes in to all the previous aspects of the Great Mother. So it's at this time that we start to claim and fence and conquer Mother Earth. Before, we never could own, fence off, conquer or claim a part of her. At this time, we start to do that. At this time, women become the spoils of war, to be traded, to be taken, to be owned. At this time, our sexuality enters into the domination paradigm, which has been a consistent thread to this very day. I think everyone is resonating deeply with the pain of our introducing of this paradigm of domination. Because in the age of Aries, women were not seen as fully human. Men only, and free men at that, non-slaved men alone, were seen as fully human. So this is how this domination paradigm comes in. This is also where we get the verse in Leviticus that is used to justify and rationalize homophobia. I'm saying to justify and rationalize because I think homophobia comes from a person's fear of that which is different. But it's justified from a verse in Leviticus that says that if a man lies with a man as if he is a woman, it's an abomination. Why was it an abomination? Because if you made a man as low as a woman, as a non-person, as a not real human, through an act of penetration, you dehumanized the man. So that's why it was an abomination in those times and in that paradigm. Not something I feel that we need to hold as truly relevant to us today. It's important in that way of thinking at that time, within that paradigm. If women are not truly human, to put a man in a role of a woman is to make him also go down from where he is and humiliate. Does everyone understand that? It's very important to understand this. What we also start to see in the age of Aries is the beginning of the regulation of our sexual behavior through codes of ethics, legal codes of ethics that lay out who may have sexual union with whom, at what time, in what place, and under what circumstances. And it's all very, very clearly laid out. It's clearly laid out because the masculine is coming in. Things are now need to be written down, and things now need to be spelled out, because as we have progressed into a masculine age, we want to go against, at this time, the irrationality of the feminine. So we want to spell everything out. It's graved in stone or clay tablets and laid out clearly exactly what should or should not happen. Now the 2,000 years turns along, we shift paradigms again, we come into the age of Pisces, again another masculine age. We call the age of Pisces the age of the sun. The age of Pisces is the age of the two fishes swimming in opposite directions, and inherent in the paradigm of Pisces, that which we have been living through much of our lives is the tail end of the tail of this fish. Okay, that's kind of a pun, but anyway, what we have been living through is the ending of this paradigm, which brings tremendous duality. One incredibly important part of this duality that came in at the beginning, at the dawn of the age of Pisces, is the separation of flesh and spirit. This has never happened before in history. It starts 2,000 years ago. Different religious cults arise which separate flesh and spirit. At this point, even eating is suspect. What to speak of sex? If flesh and spirit are separate, sex now comes more and more into the arena of that which is polluting, dangerous, and sinful, and now because it's something we do with our bodies. So it's a physical act, and when we separate flesh and spirit, we separate the sacred from the sexual. And within this, we have all been living. Despite the sexual revolution of the 60s that I grew up in, we've all basically been living in the effect of 2,000 years of separating flesh and spirit. Which means that sexuality is now suspect. Okay, we need it to reproduce the species, but we should keep it strictly for that. And other than that, don't mess with it. Keep yourself pure. At the same time, there's a very important evolution that's coming to us in the age of Pisces, which is a brand new type of spirituality, a spirituality of celibacy and asceticism. We never had it before. In the age of Taurus, spirituality and sexuality are inseparable. In the age of Aries, if you are not married, you are nothing. You are not spiritual if you are not married. The gods are married. The gods all have consorts, and you too are supposed to be married in order to be a full spiritual human being. In the age of Pisces comes the development of monasticism, a path of celibacy, paths of asceticism, paths of the alone to the alone. So we've had an important development as well as a big splitting. They went hand in hand. They're two sides of the same coin, yet there is a richness here. And I'm going to go back and revisit what we can draw out from each of these ages to bring into our new paradigm. This is now a new time and a bringing in of a new paradigm. To give an example of when this has happened before, looking back to 2,000 years ago and looking at the Jewish people, up till that time, being spiritual has meant that you bring your animals to the temple for the right things and at the right times. And you offer there in the temple. And by sacrificing what is truly valuable to you, you retain your state of being reconciled or in harmony with God. Now the Romans are invading, and if Titus had had an atom bomb, he would have dropped one on Jerusalem. It's total war. The temple is destroyed. In the thick of this battle, one rabbi, Yohanan ben Zakkai, gets himself smuggled out of Jerusalem in a coffin and taken to a small village. And there he starts to gather others around him. And there, almost single-handedly, he does the unthinkable. He puts a tradition through a paradigm shift. That's the beginning of Rabbinic Judaism, where our offering is no longer the animals being sacrificed in the now no more existing temple, but our offering is of sacred word and sacred action. That was 2,000 years ago, and one shift of paradigm, which shows how what once was one bold person acting almost alone can become what is now the complete orthodoxy and total establishment, and the thing itself that can never be shaken or changed. This is the time, again, when teachers are stepping forward, and lone voices, and not so lone voices, are calling for, again, we need to remake a paradigm. And I'm calling upon Rabbi Yohanan ben Zakkai because what he did in his time was extremely radical. When one man, Juan Diego, had a vision of Guadalupe, the Aztec people thought their world had come to an end because they could offer no more sacrifices. And when Juan Diego, one simple person, sees Guadalupe, the message is, she is the plumed serpent. She is the sun and moon together, and she brings in the age when sacrifices are no more necessary. So now, as we come into the age of Aquarius, we too must fully remake things. And that which has seemed to be so immutable and so necessary, some of this will go. First of all, we are coming into a time when sexual diversity has to be and must be embraced. Even though it has seemed to be till now the immutable way of religions that we can't have sexual diversity. That's why I just quoted Rabbi Yohanan ben Zakkai. Everything that seemed immutable changed and was reformed, and out of that richness something newer, better, more appropriate was formed. Now at this time, the richness of sexual diversity has to be brought forth. It's something that Nur proclaimed in an important letter to the Sufis as needing to be part of the Sufi order. It's something that Reb Zalman has insisted upon for Jewish renewal. Evolution is inclusion. There's a beautiful myth that Plato told about the origins of our sexuality. And I think it's important because in every other myth I've looked at is so heterosexual that it's beautiful and it's marvelous, but people are being left out of this mythological perspective. When I've been working on my book Ayurveda for Couples, And I worked on it for quite a while, and then I realized I didn't want to write a book that would be called Ayurveda 4, and then you put a little red arrow when you write in heterosexual as like an addition, and then you put couples, because it wouldn't be meaningful to me. But I had only my own experience to go on. So eventually I solved that by conducting interviews with other people. But when I went to look at other books about sexuality and spirituality, such as they are, they'll either say, everyone who isn't heterosexual is wrong, period, or one condescending paragraph. Pat on the head, okay. You don't really have it, but we still love you, even though you can't really attain the spiritual heights that we can. You know, it's okay. We'll still accept you anyway, but you're not quite as good as us. Plato had a different way of seeing it. Plato said there are 3 kinds of souls. There are male souls, female souls, and hermaphrodites. And all the souls are born dual, facing in both directions. And what happens when the souls descend into earth is that they're cut in half. Okay? So the male souls come into the world seeking always their other half, that other male, with whom, coming together, they will effect their inner sacred union. They will find their inner androgyny through their union with their other male half. And the female souls come in looking for their other half, the other female counterpart, again with whom they will experience their inner androgyny through being with the other who is just like them, reflecting their full female, their full woman. And the majority souls, hermaphrodite souls, one half male, the other half female, comes in looking for that other half, again to find our inner androgyny through seeing that reflected to us in the other, who is almost, sometimes it seems like, a different species from ourselves, from some kind of different planet. We maybe have a little bit harder job when we're doing that, relating with someone who seems like they come from a different planet. But each of us is here to find what we're here to find, and we're here to express in that way. And like it says in Bhagavad Gita, better your own dharma, your own way, however humble, than that of another, however great. To me, it's right there. This is the natural law for each of us to manifest as who we have come forth as, rather than trying to go through therapy or conversion or whatever to try to force ourselves to be someone else. Just like I'm really grateful that my mother refused to allow me to be forced to write right-handed. Because it would have violated my nature and would probably have destroyed many of my talents if she had allowed people to upset my brain that way. Same way, we all come in, look for who we seek as our sexual partner is who we've been destined from the beginning to seek. Whatever gender combination, as Plato said, that is our path. This is one very important part of going into the new paradigm, is our embracing of sexual diversity, including our making of friendships across these sometimes watertight compartments of this is the gay world, this is the lesbian world, this is the straight world, because we need to enrich each other with each other's experiences. I learned that when I conducted the interviews. I will never know in this life what it is to be a man who loves a man, except through my friendship with someone else, some other people who can nurture that hidden part of myself, because we're all full, total human beings, and we find richness in our diversity. So one of the important parts of our emerging sexual paradigm is our embracing of our diversity of sexual experience within ourselves and in our genuine appreciation of all. No condescending patting on the head. You're not really as good as us, but we want to be kind to you anyway. It's not that it doesn't have a place. Evolution is inclusion. Looking then at what are some of the riches that we need to bring forth from each of those ages that has gone before, and to consider first what the age of Pisces brought us, which is understandings of asceticism and celibacy. Celibacy is the Christian word and Christian concept that refers to a life of being alone. For me, a more friendly and usable way of approaching this is through the Sanskrit understanding of brahmacharya. Brahmacharya means to be a chariot of Brahman. And that is done through the right use of our sexual energy, through the ingathering of our sexual energy in the service of our evolution. Now, whereas celibacy is perhaps only for monks and the chosen, brahmacharya, in its various manifestations, is for everyone and is a priceless gift that we have gained through our cycle of 2,000 years of asceticism and monastic spirituality in the age of Pisces. Brahmacharya is for everyone to be a chariot of Brahman, applied in different ways at different times. So traditionally, for the young people, brahmacharya means actually completely containing your sexual energy. In the Ayurvedic text, it explains that the men especially are still growing until age 25. And that's actually backed up by modern brain research that says the executive brain isn't mature until 25. That means prior to 25, we make many foolish, reckless, and impulsive choices about our sexual energy. Now, I'm not trying to say that we're going to do this nowadays, because I know that it's not going to. The times are just different, and it doesn't seem that this is the way we're going. But just to express that this can be a great way to go. Personally, I was celibate until I met Sadananda at 28. I had got in one love affair, which was a long-distance love affair, which greatly limited any actual sexual contacts in this love affair. I got in one love affair at age 21. That was it. I was completely on this path of celibacy when at 28 I met Sadananda. And I feel that it has played a part in how I was able to step into something that is so beautiful and so sacred. I just want to put it forth that within this path of sacred sexuality, celibacy can play a tremendous part. First of all, the celibacy of actually being alone, practicing alone, because your destined one has not been revealed to you. I didn't know. I really did not think. I haven't thinking that men generally were sweaty and smelly and lustful. I didn't think that was my view as a young girl. I didn't think that I would waste the pure love in my heart on that kind of entity. I was only for God. Oh, for God. That this is my thinking. Then, of course, when I meet Sadananda, this is God in human form. Wow, okay. But my whole idea of being, I'm making that split, right? Human beings, God, this is who I love. I meet Sadananda, and this is a human being who's also God, and I love him on every possible level. So, still, it was my years of dedication to only a divine beloved that did ready me to receive the divinely human beloved, who is both very, very human as well as utterly divine. So that there is a place within our experience of sexuality for choosing to fully contain our sexual energy, whether it is because we are waiting to meet the one we love, whether it's because we're just totally focused on our spiritual path, and that's right now where our energy is going. There is a place within our relationships. We have found introducing brahmacharya in terms of periods of celibacy within the love relationship is beneficial on every level. Sometimes you can actually make like a vow for this period, whatever it is, 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever you want to choose. We're choosing this time to focus on the internal alchemy of raising the energy within ourselves, totally focusing on our spiritual practice. Amazing, when we do that, what we're going to experience when we relax that asceticism and again come together is so much fuller, richer, and more magical, because it's part of an interplay. So that there are many, many places for that sense of brahmacharya within our relationship. That there's intentional periods of celibacy that can be taken between the couple. There's also just the fact that we all are here to be the chariot of Brahman. And whether you're married or partnered with the one you love or not, there is no person who is free to fully indulge their sexual urges. When you get attracted to someone else, you don't indulge it. You're practicing brahmacharya. When you're attracted to the one you love, but you got kirtan the following night, so you want to have the energy to share with the people instead of sharing with each other, that's brahmacharya. Because it's the interplay of expression and containment of our sexual energy that is for everyone. It's a part of our sexual life. If we're not fully engaging in this interplay of having expression, having containment, raising the energy, working within, we may be limiting ourselves from touching the heights of what sexual experience can bring us, and we may be limiting ourselves from touching the spiritual heights. Is this making sense to everyone? It may be a little controversial or something, but I think it's quite important to express. We learned this during the age of Pisces, about this working with our own energy. And there is a difference between brahmacharya and just sheer abstinence. Because in sheer abstinence, we're repressing our energy. Like telling teenagers to be abstinent. I mean, how are they going to? You're not telling them how to, other than just say no. Which means repress yourself. This is why sometimes we see that it's has been difficult. The priests sometimes find it difficult in their vow of celibacy if they haven't been taught the technologies by which brahmacharya is practiced. The difference being Are we just repressing our sexual energy, or are we working with our internal energies? Through yoga, through pranayama, through visualization, through any kind of intense spiritual practice. Yoga is specifically designed to do this, but actually any spiritual practice will work. I have been the doctor a lot for Hare Krishnas and worked a lot with the younger and older men in the Hare Krishna order. They're very strict celibacy. So they have to follow really, really strict brahmacharya. So they'll often come and they'll talk about this with me. And in this tradition, Hatha yoga is not really practiced, and pranayama is not really practiced. So I'll say to them, when you get up in the morning at 3:30 and you go to Mangal Arati, make sure you really dance and you really leap high into the air when you dance. Because this and that particular path, through getting up in the morning and dancing and leaping with devotion upwards, that's how the sexual energy is raised. So in the path of devotion, you don't necessarily have to do all the yogic practices or technologies, but you have to enter into intense, full-hearted devotion, and it raises the energy. So whatever your path is, it's not like only one path is going to work. Whatever your path is, has to be practiced fully and intentionally and really entering it. Then the brahmacharya part, the inner working with the sexual energy, can take place. Stepping back a little more, the age of Aries, what could we bring from this? I was a little squeamish about the idea that we were going to bring anything from the age when sexuality is related to domination and all these rules and regulations. But that, I think, is what we could consider at this time, is how ethics plays a part in the union of spirituality and sexuality. Because if it's not ethical, it's not spiritual. Right? So there's a foundation of ethics, which is the bedrock of any spiritual path. In the new time, as the ancient prophets said, the tablets that before were written on stone will now be written in our hearts. What does that mean? It means that in our ethics, we do not go to the letters of tablets of stone to tell us with whom, when, how, and at what time it's legal. But we have to look at the tablets of our heart. Now this is a very tricky one, because it's very easy to convince yourself under the force of lust that the tablets of your heart are telling you heaven knows what. Isn't that so? Two basic principles that inform in the Catholic Church they always say, act on your conscience, but your conscience must be informed. There's two fundamental principles that must inform our hearts. Satya, or truth, and ahimsa, or not harming others. Acting with genuine love. It's as simple as that. No lying. No lying about your health conditions to the one you think you're falling in love with. No lying to someone else about what's going on. No lying to yourself. Genuine truthfulness, and no one being harmed. It's as simple as that. You are the only one that can make those choices, because now the tablet is engraved on our hearts, but the choices are about not harming self or others, not being untruthful to self or others. On this very simple basis, then we don't need to be told blah blah blah, with whom, when, how, what time, because we know if we always consult back to never harming another, including us, never harming ourselves, never being untruthful. This is the ethics that will be a foundation stone for genuine sacred sexuality. And then looking back as far as the age of Taurus, this is the juicy part which says, yes, actual sexual union is sacred and it is ritual and it is beneficial to the whole world and it is magical and it is uplifting. How do we bring this from this ancient time into our own paradigm? We are moving from the age of the mother to the age of the daughter. And the age of the daughter is interesting because the daughter is the daughter of both the father and the mother. And so in our new paradigm of sexuality and spirituality, there needs to be an honoring both of what women truly seek and of what men truly seek. And that's what I think is going to make all the difference. You all may have heard, I'm sure, of the story of Cupid and Psyche, or Eros and Psyche. Eros and Psyche fall in love, but Eros always visits Psyche in the dark. And Psyche wants to see his beautiful face and look in his beautiful eyes and see who he really is. So one day, when he visits her, she lights a lamp. And immediately, Eros flees. He doesn't want the lamp. He wants the darkness. But at last, after immense trials, Psyche wins back Eros. Enshrined in this myth is the understanding that men desire the impersonal ecstasy, and women desire the personal, intimate connection. Of course, there is that, we are all dual and we both desire both, but there's that tendency. One of the gay men that I interviewed was very clear. He said, a man knows what a man wants, and so we gay men, we don't have a problem, because we all know what we want. Whereas when you're dealing with women, women want something different. Yeah, so it's inherent in the male energy to seek for the impersonal ecstasy. Like how the old left-handed tantra used to be, you do not know the woman who is the consort. You do not know her, you have no relationship with her. You practice intense celibacy for at least a year before you meet with her. Then you meet with her, and it's an experience of complete impersonal to transpersonal ecstasy. It has nothing whatsoever to do with personal relationship. In a sense, you might say that's the ultimate male ideal sexual experience. Going to the impersonal ecstasy. Psyche, on the other hand, what she wants is all this relating. She wants to sit down, hold hands, do all this intimate relating part. That's when women get together. That's the other side of the coin, right? What are the most durable relationships? Between two women. Because a woman knows what a woman wants, which is a profound connection where you can process all night long whenever you want to and really talk about your feelings, really get into it. You make a very strong, durable relationship because relating and connecting, being intimate and meeting together and talking and sharing about feelings is what a woman wants. So can we, in our sacred sexuality, come to something that is in some way new? It's different from the visit to the dedicated woman who's going to ensure the fertility of our flock, but she's not your wife, and the sex you have with your wife is really about having kids and not seen as sacred the way it is with the dedicated woman. It's different from feeling that to be spiritual, we have to be celibate. Right? Can we come to something that is new, which finds room for both? That I think is what's really interesting about a new kind of sacred sexuality. Is there room for the impersonal ecstasy that the male desires, and room for the heartfelt connecting that the female desires? And again, that's for all of us, couples of all orientations. Eventually, after I had worked really hard with gay couple that I work with in one city, they finally did stay up till 3 a.m. processing and talking about feelings, which they've never done before, but it saved their relationship. Because now they're getting into the juicy feelings, connectings, I need, I feel, I want. When you do this, I feel. They're starting to learn how to get this other side going. So we all need to bring in both of these aspects. For the woman to have an ecstatic experience, she needs to feel that deep security of knowing that she is loved, that she can trust, that there is a relationship that's going to continue. The woman won't touch heights of ecstasy until she really feels that she can relax in the commitment and intimacy of the relationship. At the same time, once it becomes very humdrum, very routine, very mundane, at a certain point, someone between 40 and 50, the man wants to look for someone else, someone younger, someone exciting, someone illicit, because only then is he going to actually have this impersonal ecstasy, because it's gotten very much of the routine with the long-term partner. If it's a man and a woman, we're giving that a majority example right now. You'll understand. So we want to walk a path where we can have both of these needs be met. That calls for a path where we engage in genuine relationships and seek for genuine intimacy, because that's what the feminine is calling out for. At long last, I am not just going to be your dedicated temple maiden, your semi-slave, semi-wife to reproduce your sperm survival thing. Not just the ideal that you've glimpsed from a window and it's inspired all your art and writing and poetry for your whole life because I'm your muse. I'm not going to just be the nun or the whore or just the mother or any of these parts anymore, because I'm all of them. This is what the woman of today is calling for. See me as a whole. Don't put part of me here as one person, part of me there as another person, part of me over there, split me up throughout your life. I'm all of it. Let's be all of it together and have a multifaceted relationship of genuine intimacy, where we're in it for the long haul. Sadananda doesn't like it when I say that at this point he's as good as a woman, and I don't mean that he's not a really manly man, because he is. I mean, he's just as good to relate to now as a woman, because he will sit down and hold my hands and look in my eyes and want to hear about my feelings. Because over 25 years, you become more and more of the other. And you learn to develop. You do become each other. It's really amazing. Maybe he's done a much better job of becoming what he's seen in me. And I'm still, at least one day I'll have that clarity. And I'll have that not quite, that imperturbability, that ability to just be with things and not get all up into the whole irrational drama queen thing. But I've certainly grown a lot into what that wisdom aspect that Sadananda has reflected towards me as he's grown more into flowing with the whole sea world and the Cancer, right? Being with me is like constant trips to Sea World, right? Let's go deep sea diving, Sadananda. Let's plunge into some emotions here. Love it or hate it, you might as well love it. The woman wants that long journey. And the wonderful thing about committing together for a long journey is it does keep getting better. Sometimes it keeps getting better by more or less seeming to get worse a lot of the time, because as you trust more deeply, more parts come out and say, can I be a part of this too? Can little girl Lust really be in this? Well, how about me and Mom? Are you going to have a relation to the me and Mom's in as well? What about crazy menopausal Amazon? Can we have her there as well? So in some ways it may seem to get worse, but it's because more and more of us, the more we feel embraced and included, more and more of us gets brought in. The parts that we've never really dared to show to anyone else ever before, and now are starting to come into this. And for what the man needs, can we continue to keep that sacred space where our sexual connection does not become routine, run-of-the-mill, humdrum, 20 minutes, and then 20 minutes after football and before you fall asleep is not sacred union. When I just got back from India and I was in England with my parents, and there was a television miniseries, The Jewel in the Crown, and there was this moment in The Jewel in the Crown where the illicit relationship between, I think it's the Western woman and the Indian man Hari, right, is being consummated. And it's consummated throughout the entire episode. The next morning, phones are ringing. Can you do that? Can your husband do that? We've never done that. Can anyone really do that? The answer is yes. It really can be like that, and much, much more. But it involves making your sexual connection a practice, like any other practice. Just like I was saying in one of my other talks, maybe it was in a different city, that unless you do this was in Chicago, talking about spirituality and your work life. I said, first you have to have a spiritual practice. Because if you don't do your scales and arpeggios, don't think you can go out and play Bach. Same thing with having what the male energy wants. This peak experience. It involves a daily spiritual practice. Daily practice of awareness, daily practice of the breath, daily practice of loving kindness. This little much at least is needed. Practices of working with the internal energy can be very helpful too. But at least the basics, daily meditating, daily sending loving kindness to all beings, daily working with the breath, it fits us to be vessels of this sacred sexual experience. You can't just call it up out of nowhere. Then, just as in the old Tantra times when you have to do at least the year of absolute brahmacharya, that means no seminal emissions for that whole year when you're fitting yourself for the left-hand Tantra union with the unknown person. Isn't our beloved partner worth a little effort if so much effort is being made in the Tantra schools for the unknown person? Maybe not to say we have to do the year of celibacy. There are rhythms that are suggested. One rhythm that's suggested, and again, I'm just giving this as an example, is the monthly rhythm. The woman has a monthly cycle. There's a rhythm to her body throughout the month. The monthly honeymoon can become a part of the monthly rhythm. Having the monthly honeymoon means whatever, that the kids have sleepover with friends, that the phone's unhooked, that the cell phones, there are no phones, there are no interruptions, the time and space are sacred. This is something we practice for, we build up to, that is truly a genuine spiritual practice and not a routine kind of discharge of energy, or it's not a humdrum thing. Is this making sense to everyone? Through these kind of shifts in behaving very differently from the way we've always thought it ought to be, we can start to experience this new paradigm where sacred celibacy that we're bringing in, or brahmacharya that we're bringing in from the previous paradigm, and sacred sexuality that we bring in from ancient times, and love and devotion can begin to come together. And as we're coming into these sacred sexual experiences, let us not forget that this is the age of Aquarius, and that means it's not about us. It means that two people who truly come together in love and sacredness offer healing for the world. Consciously, intentionally, bringing forth an offering healing for the sexual wound of woman through the truly loving sexual experience. Offering healing for all suffering beings, offering healing for the world through a love that is truly shared, through a union that is truly enacted. This is actually told in the mysticism of all very ancient traditions, like in the Jewish tradition, that when you make love with the one you love on the Sabbath, this is the union of Ein Sof, the highest of the high, the beyond, with Shekhinah, the immanent, feminine, divine. It is these two coming together for tikkun olam, for mending the world. Mending the world, one truly sacred, truly loving, genuine, ethical, heartfelt, sexual act at a time.
Thank you for tuning in to Ayurveda and Spirituality with Alakananda Ma. We hope today's exploration has ignited a spark of curiosity and insight within you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and share it with a friend. For more enlightening discussions and practical wisdom on Ayurveda and spirituality, subscribe and join our Facebook group, Alundi Ayurveda. To allow us to continue sharing valuable content, consider donating to Alundi Ashram. The links will be in the show notes. Until next time, may you walk the path of Ayurveda with grace and embrace the light of spiritual wisdom in your journey.
त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम्